but them back broad. Yes, they speak truth to power. This man no afraid of no boy, no girl, no day, nowhere. Because he comes with his receipts. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Peter Bunting.
Thank you, fellow panelists, distinguished guests, comrades and friends. Good evening. You know, as someone who recognizes that all politics is local, I didn't mind giving up half of my time to Janice so she could speak to her people. And to continue Nikisha's cricketing analogy, there are sufficient runs on the board that we could declare right now. But since I'm not the captain of the team, I've been sent in to give our tail enders innings. But just very quickly, I've been asked to speak on the issue of national security, and I just want to do two things. The first, I want to review the Andrew Holness regime's track record in national security. And then secondly, I want to speak to how we would do things differently. So first, this GLP government is suddenly claiming that one of their successes is the reduction in murders for the last few months. Now, we're all very happy and welcome these reduction in murders. But it has absolutely nothing to do with the GLP regime. It is in spite of the GLP regime. And let me just do a quick review of what happened when the government changed in 2016 and these people came to office. The first thing they did was introduce a most idiotic policy. They suddenly decided that police didn't deserve new cars, new vehicles anymore. And they were the only government in the entire world that decided they were going to purchase junk vehicles for the police. Well, when they stated it, we predicted it would be a fiasco. And it turned out to be even worse than we had imagined. And cut a long story short, up to today, the used vehicles haven't been delivered and cannot be found. Although all have been paid for. And the few that did arrive, some of them could barely make it off the wharf before them broke down. I remember it was embarrassing to see some of the police officers trying to be professionals driving around these old wrecks. So what happened? Vehicles are a force multiplier for the police. And by year 2, there were so few operational vehicles in the police force that the murder rate skyrocketed. It continued for the next 8 years. It was so bad that Andrew Holness now has the record of being the prime minister who's in his 2 terms, more Jamaicans have been murdered than under any other 2 terms under any other prime minister. For many years, they persisted with this policy, this failed policy of state of emergency, which all it was doing was violating the rights of the people. When they scraped up almost 2,000 young, mostly men, in St. James, what was the consequences? Many lost their jobs. Many were stigmatized. Many were set back. The pan chicken man had to pack up by 6 o'clock, but KFC could run till midnight or 2 a.m. All that policy of oppression was doing was putting more pressure on the average Jamaican. There was no reduction in murder anywhere. In fact, there was a 25% increase in the entire Jamaica, year after year. Yes, temporarily in a particular area or community, Alan, where there was a surge of security forces, you would find a decline temporarily. But there was something called the balloon effect. So after states of emergency in St. James, then you found murders going up in Hanover, in Westmoreland, in Trelawney. The opposition called out this practice and said it's not only unconstitutional, but is ineffective. And today, we stand here before you vindicated by the full Constitutional Court of Jamaica. Who in their ruling handed down a couple of weeks ago, not only confirmed what we have been saying, but it showed they found it was not only unconstitutional, but it was ineffective. These are people, these are judges, skilled, trained, and experienced in weighing evidence. And the evidence presented to them did not support the argument that it worked in reducing murders overall. So we became more and more militant in our objection. We stopped supporting the extensions in the Senate. We took them to the Constitutional Court. Others also took them to the Constitutional Court. And taxpayers will now be burdened to pay tens of millions of dollars in restitution to those who were deprived of their liberty illegally. In the last 2 years, and in particular, in the last 5 months, we have seen welcome declines. And that is because there have been no inefficient states of emergency used in Jamaica. The professional police officers can focus on what they know to do to bring down crime instead of manning these checkpoints, which not catching anybody. Checkpoints that just blocking up traffic when you're coming into Mobile, whether from St. Elizabeth, from Westmoreland, from Hanover, from Trelawney. All it was doing was create traffic jams and frustrating people. So they created the conditions why the murders spiked. They created the conditions why police couldn't get to do their jobs. And so we commend this commissioner and his team who have not wasted time talking about give us state of emergency, but focused on the spearfishing approach, which we have always advocated, rather than the net fishing approach, which only violates Jamaicans, ordinary Jamaicans' rights. We reject the idea that to be strong against crime, you have to give up people's rights. We believe you can be strong against crime and strong for our human rights guaranteed under the Constitution, under the Charter of Rights. And the best evidence of that is what is happening since we have abandoned those wasteful states of emergency. I know the only thing that I saw that came out of it, it gave the Prime Minister the opportunity to every month jump up at a press conference looking like a wannabe petty tyrant with his generals flanking him and joyfully announcing that he was removing the rights of the population in St. James or Hanover or Westmoreland. That's all that was achieved. Him, what the young people call cosplaying. You know when they dress up in costumes like, here I am, the petty tyrant with my generals around me. So that is what has happened, and that is why we give this GLP regime no credit for any reductions which have taken place recently. And the track record of the Prime Minister and his regime is that more Jamaicans have been murdered during their 2 terms than any other 2 terms in Jamaica. So let me turn quickly now to what we would do different. We have always maintained that crime control measures must be balanced with crime prevention measures. And what are those crime prevention measures? At its core, it is investing in communities and in people. Investing in communities and its people. Social investment. That's something we advocated for when we were in office before. This administration abandoned it completely. We will be returning, and we have seen the private sector on their own because the government completely defunded social interventions and social investment. So the Project STAR has been a successful project, but very limited in scale and scope. We will come back and put government funding behind these things. We will ensure that in some of the communities where the environment is what the criminologists, I believe, would describe as criminogenic. It's an environment that is conducive to producing at-risk youth who are vulnerable to recruitment by gangs. We know we have to go in and we have to invest in better housing stock, better road infrastructure, better schools. We have to have remedial training and employment opportunities for the young people in these communities so they have very real options. That is an approach that puts people at the center of our development efforts. That is an approach that someone like Alan Bernard has spent a great deal of his life championing, and I want to big him up for that because we work together. Because we worked together when I was at the Ministry of National Security, and I know he's a youth who genuinely believes in empowering people to get them out of the situations they are in. Not just scraping them up wholesale and locking them away. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close here. I think you've had a meal, a full meal, a many-course meal. And now I think I'll hand it back to the moderator who is going to turn it over to the most important section for the evening. And that is your time. Thank you.
Senator Bunting want to take my job. A round of applause for unafraid, fearless Peter Bunting. All right, so this is the juicy segment, yes? I'm going to invite you, there's a microphone right here. If you have a question, one, or a recommendation that you want to put to the panelists, I invite you to come to the microphone. Because so many of us are here, I'm going to ask you to make sure you give us